people start their morning by tuning into one of the #1 radio shows, The Breakfast Club, which you can now catch on Netflix as well. Please welcome The Breakfast Club's Charlamagne the God and Loren Lorosa.
From the Breakfast Club to the Lunch Club.
That's right, that's right.
I'm sorry I didn't hug everybody when I didn't know I could do
Air
something.
hugs. That's totally fine. But we were just talking about the reflecting pool in Washington. I'm sure you guys have heard about the painting, the peeling, the algae. Right now, President Trump, without really evidence, is saying that it was vandals that caused this. Why do you think this is such a mess, and do you think this was something caused by vandals?
Nah, I think that there's a random bank account somewhere in the world connected to Trump, and that's where that $14 million went. That's what I think.
Possible. Yeah. Well, let's talk about the Knicks. The Knicks in 5 for my Knicks in 5. So we had the big ticker tape parade, was Thursday, attended by an estimated 2 million people. Amazing parade. Now, the owner of the Knicks, Jim Dolan, says that the team has accepted an invitation to visit Trump at the White House. And he is the owner of the team. Do you think they should go?
No, I don't think they should go.
Why not?
I don't see the why in it. I feel like this moment has been so like everybody's coming together, and you know, like I think when you start doing things like going to the White House and stuff like that, like it divides people, and I think that we should continue to just be happy and in the glory of the win.
What do you think, Charlamagne?
You know, listen, I think that they're all grown adults and they can do what it is that they want to do. But if they're not going, I would like for them to tell us the reason why. Like, you know, we know that no NBA team has won a championship and has visited the White House thus far. But you should let folks know, hey, if it's a political reason why you don't want to go, let them know the reason, right? Because I think sometimes, you know, we normalize what's going on in the White House because we don't speak out about it. Like, don't tell me that it's just a scheduling conflict, right? You know what I mean? Like, give me the actual
Do one or
reason.
the other, yeah.
Yeah, give me the actual reason why it is you don't want to be there.
We're not gonna get that though.
So, Donald Trump is not only losing the war on algae, he also seems to be losing the war on Iran. And this week, there were some very high-stake talks going on in Switzerland. J.D. Vance was over there.
High stakes. I thought you were talking about J.D.'s high-stake talk here.
Okay, no, not that one, the other one.
Okay, sorry.
The one with Iran.
Okay.
But there was these peace talks, right, are going on that he's become the face of. And in the meantime, Donald Trump was tweeting out all sorts of things, calling people jealous and bad people or stupid if they criticized it. But Republicans, there are some Republicans who are actually speaking out against this. People even like Lindsey Graham are having issues with this deal. So two questions. Why do you think Republicans are finally speaking out on something regarding Trump? And two, is he setting Vance up, you think, to take the fall? What's going on here?
Man, sometimes all of this feels like a big psyop. Like they all got into a room and they said, hey, let's do some wrestling around this Iran situation. And the reason I say that is because, yo, until you hear what Israel has to say, it does not matter. And that's just the truth to me. Like America is not in control of this situation, and I don't feel like they ever have been. Whenever they do come to some type of peace agreement, Israel comes and says, no, that's not what we want.
Yeah, but Trump keeps telling us that Netanyahu does exactly what he wants.
Nah, it don't seem like that. It seems like, you know, it seems like Trump is Netanyahu's puppet. So, you know, the conversation should be Israel, Iran, and America. And until Israel and Iran come to an agreement, I don't think that there's going to be an agreement.
Awesome.
So I love listening to you guys. You're so much fun, and you've become like must-watch TV, radio for Democratic candidates. They come on if they're thinking of running in 2028. You ask tough questions. And one thing that I think you've leaned into a lot, Charlamagne, is, listen, Donald Trump's disapproval ratings are very high. 58% of the country does not approve of Donald Trump, but 59% also don't approve of the Democratic Party right now. Do you feel like Democrats have kind of gotten their mojo back and figured out who they want to be, what they want to stand for in 2028?
You know, people ask the question, right? They'd be like, yo, what do Democrats need to do? I think, everybody knows what Democrats need to do, right? Like, there's two things in this country that everybody wants, no matter what your race is, your party is. People want to feel safe, and they want more money in their pocket. So you have to speak to people's everyday needs. So we know that's what it is they need to do. But I think we got to start asking the question, like, what is it they want to do? Like, when they get back in a position of power, do they want to do these things that the American people want them to do? Because a lot of people will say, we're here now in this current position because the things that we wanted them to do, they didn't do. And a lot of the things that we wanted them to do was things that they needed to do. Like, they needed to hire an attorney general that was going to prosecute the case against Donald Trump for January 6th, right? Like, they needed to... They needed to vote to get rid of the filibuster, right? So they could properly govern, right? Then they could do things like expand the Supreme Court. Then you can pass things like the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the Freedom to Vote Act. They needed to do those things, but some people are questioning if they even wanted to do those things, because when they were in a position to do it, they didn't. So that's my thing. It's not about what they need to do. When they get back in a position of power, are you going to do what we, the people, want you to do?
Yeah.